Brawl Stars has been out globally for about 6.5 years now, and almost 8 years ago, it was released into open beta, which kind of feels crazy to say. Brawl Stars has gone through some wild changes, awesome updates, big highs, and a few lows. This is the complete history of Brawl Stars, from pre-beta all the way to July 2025. So to get the full history, we have to go all the way back to when Brawl Stars wasn't even called Brawl Stars. In fact, very early on, the concept that Supercell had landed on was called
Project Laser,
which was a space-themed game rather than the Wild West theme that they ended up settling on later. Early character concepts don't really look anything like what they are now. The only remnant of them are these little bots from Robo Rumble, but otherwise, it's a completely different game. Now, not long after this, but still before beta was released, the team decided to rename and rebrand Project Laser to Slugfest, which, like I mentioned before, was a Wild West style game. And this is where the characters start to look familiar. You can see Colt and Shelly in these screenshots, and they look pretty much the same as we know them today, just a little less polished. Or a lot less polished.
Not the face!
Now, a while later, Supercell landed on the name Brawl Stars as we know it now. This is what ended up sticking and became one of the most well-known mobile games over the past decade. Fast forward a bit, the world finally got to see Brawl Stars for themselves in open beta, which was released on June the 15th, 2017. And when I say world, what I really mean is Canada only, and only on iOS. So yeah, pretty exclusive at first. That being said, if you just changed your address to be Canadian, then you could go ahead and download it. Personally, my address was the Toronto Raptors Stadium address. Thanks, Raptors. For starters, you didn't have a ton of options to choose from back then, having only 15 brawlers available, and compared to the nearly 100 that we have today, yeah, I'd say Brawl Stars has come a long way. Back then, you also played in portrait mode instead of landscape, and believe it or not, we actually really liked it. Now, in the early days, there were only 4 game modes: Solo Showdown, Heist, Gem Grab, which at the time was called Smash and Grab, and Bounty. And that was it. There was no Hot Zone, no Brawl Ball, not even Duo Showdown. Progression was also completely different than it is now. Instead of power points, you collected Elixir, which you would use with gold to upgrade your brawler's health, damage, and super, but you did that separately, instead of the system like it is now, where they're all upgraded at once. To get your brawlers, you actually just open boxes, and you could even get duplicate brawlers, which would give you a currency called chips. And if you saved up enough chips, then you could use those chips to buy a brawler directly. Now, this far back, clubs, they weren't even a thing. Okay, well, they sort of were, but they weren't called clubs, they were called bands. And at the beginning, there was no benefit to being in a band whatsoever, except to belong to a community, which is a benefit, I guess, depending on your friends. Now, just a month later in July, Brawl Stars got its very first update post-beta launch, where we got our very first brand new brawler, Piper, who was absolutely busted on release. She would one-shot everything. So a new brawler being absolutely overpowered? Maybe not that much has changed. A little later in 2017, we got Pam, who was originally called Mama J in the Brawl Talk, and Tara as well. But more importantly, we saw the introduction of our very first brand new game mode, Brawl Ball. And this was absolutely huge because other than Solo Showdown, Brawl Ball is still the most popular game mode in the game, and it drew even more players in. Now, not long after that, Brawler stats were quadrupled across the board, which didn't really make a difference at all initially, but balancing moving forward would be a lot easier for the devs. During this time, we also got introduced to some absolutely classic and infamous modes: Robo Rumble and Boss Fight, which was later renamed to Big Game. Why infamous, I hear you ask? Well, these modes were not regular modes. No. They were weekend exclusive events that you had to spend your hard-earned tickets on just for the hope of getting some big rewards. Yeah, it was basically gambling, but with randoms, and we all know how that goes. These modes and the tickets to play them would remain in the game for a good long while, way past this point, completely unchanged. Now, in late 2017, progression was tweaked a bit, and honestly, I really enjoyed this new way. Progression was 3-tiered in health, damage, and super, just like before, except now each one had 6 upgrades, and after upgrading all 6, you got something called a crest for that stat, which was sort of like a early passive version of a gadget. Now, on top of that, we got star powers, which would unlock unique abilities and stat boosts once the brawler was completely maxed out. This system is definitely more complicated than what we have now, but I honestly really enjoyed the customizable upgrades. And finally, closing out the year, we got an update that changed the elixir that you would collect into tokens, which of course you would use those to unlock boxes. And then the chips that you got turned into gems, which we all know and love gems. So then we went into one of the biggest, if not the biggest year in Brawl Stars history, 2018. Now at the start of the year, it was pretty quiet. There wasn't many updates or news, but then, like out of nowhere, came a huge change that would affect the game forever. The game changed from portrait to landscape mode. Now remember how I said that the community actually liked portrait mode? Yeah, well, that community wasn't too happy about this change. Myself, along with Ryan and Coach Corey, were the ones who actually hosted this Brawl Talk that introduced the change.
I'm gonna have to say... yeah.
People were livid. Like, they absolutely hated this change so much. In fact, to calm the community down, Ryan put out a message that said,
"Our decision was landscape or kill the game."
In the end, of course, it turned out for the best, but looking back now, it's kind of hard for me to even imagine playing the game in portrait mode instead of landscape like we have now. This was also the update when they made upgrading brawlers more streamlined and simple. Now upgrades were applied to all stats at once rather than individually like they were before. That new system is very similar to how we upgrade brawlers to this day. Brawl boxes were also to be unlocked with keys in this update, and as we'll soon find out, these boxes and their progression will go through a ton of changes as well. Now later in the year, we got introduced to Duo Showdown, which was nice, but more importantly, we were introduced to the Trophy Road. Now the Trophy Road back then locked certain aspects of the game behind trophy milestones. For instance, you couldn't unlock Brock at all until you hit 1,000 trophies, and once you were there, you would get him for free. Then in September, we got another controversy. Mortis lost his hat. If you didn't play back then, Mortis was introduced with a hat. He did not have a no-hat version, and everybody really liked it. But apparently the devs decided that no, we don't like the hat, and they just took it away from us, and there was no hat anymore with Mortis. It was such a big deal back then that I actually made a 3-part mystery series on who stole his hat. And eventually, because of the community outcry, we ended up getting a version of him with his hat and his no hat version just a few months later in December. And speaking of December, that's when bands were renamed to clubs. And they also made the environment 3D, which is a huge visual improvement for the game as they prepped it for what was about to happen next. In the same update, we got Leon, and if you think that he's hard to deal with now, yeah, you have no idea because he was completely busted on release. Not only did he do insane damage and his super lasted 10 seconds, but he could walk right up next to you, literally be on top of you, and you wouldn't even know he was there. He's still completely invisible. Facing him was a nightmare. Then, at long last, just a few days later on December the 12th, 2018, nearly a year and a half after beta had started, Supercell finally launched Brawl Stars globally, and the hype was insane.
Brawl Stars is going global!
The global launch brought a ton of new players to the game, and with that came a very busy year for 2019. Now, although there weren't a ton of updates in 2019, the ones that did come were huge and brought lots of long-lasting and important features to the game. For starters, we got 10 brand new brawlers who were released. Gene, who broke the game whenever you played him.
What? What just happened?
Then we had Carl and Rosa, who was wildly overpowered.
Oh my gosh, she is indestructible.
BB, Tick, 8-Bit, Sandy M's, B, and Max. We also got another new game mode called Siege, which would be removed later on, although it does still come back periodically. Also in 2019, Supercell announced the release of second star powers, which gave the game a lot of different mechanics and combinations that you could choose from. We also got the Star Shop along with Star Points, and Star Points kind of work similarly to how Bling does today, except that you could only spend them on a few skins, although most people actually just spent those Star Points on Brawl boxes or mega boxes in the shop at the end of each season. Now on top of that, the Star Shop held some very exclusive skins, and the most exciting ones were ones like the Golden Mecha Crow and Golden Mecha Bow skins, and they cost 50,000 star points each, which was a lot, but they were the most exclusive skins in the game. Later in the year, we also got Lone Star and Takedown, which bombed really hard, and not long after release, were removed. developed. But perhaps the most important thing added in the entirety of 2019 was the introduction of Power Play. Power Play was the first iteration of ranked mode, and it worked a lot differently back then. For starters, you only got 3 matches per day, and you could only play with brawlers who had a star power, and there was no pick or ban phase. Now with all of that said, Power Play was not all that great upon initial release and would receive quite a few reworks in the coming years. Now we're getting into 2020 and the COVID-19 era, and I think it's fair to say that this was one of the most interesting and wild years of all time, and in the history of Brawl Stars, it's no different. In 2020, with everybody stuck at home, Brawl Stars reached new heights in terms of daily players, so Supercell jumped on this golden opportunity and gave us a year absolutely full of amazing game-changing updates. To start out, we got introduced to a brand new game mode, Hot Zone, and Hot Zone quickly gained popularity and in no time became a permanent mode that you can still go and play today. Even bigger than that though, we got gadgets. Now gadgets upon release weren't too much different than they are today, except that some did different things than they do now. But perhaps the biggest game-changing thing that we got this year, and honestly since the game was launched, was the Brawl Pass. Now the first Brawl Pass was a bit different than it is today as well. First off, you could buy it with gems, which was nice for the free-to-play players, and the first few were a lot shorter than they are now. Of course, along with the Brawl Pass, we were introduced to quests. They work pretty much exactly the same as they do now, and this new method of progression replaced the old method of collecting star tokens and regular tokens, and it was overwhelmingly agreed that it was a massive improvement to the progression. Now the Brawl Pass also introduces to a brand new rarity of brawler, the chromatic rarity. Now chromatic brawlers, for those of you who don't remember, got released on the Brawl Pass, and you could get them for free on the premium side of the pass, or you could get them from Brawl boxes. Now if you were hoping to get them from boxes, you had to get really lucky, because in the first season that they were released, they had the same odds as a legendary brawler. Now the next season it would be mythic, then moving forward they'd be an epic drop chance. Now along with the Brawl Pass, the weekend events were changed to no longer require tickets to play. Instead there would be a quest to complete them. And speaking of weekend events, in 2020 we got introduced to a brand new one, Super City Smash. And I guess the best thing that I could say about it was that it was a game mode that you could play. We'll just leave it at that. This year was also the year that Brawl Stars was released in China, and there was a huge celebration for it, and we even got an exclusive skin for Jessie. Now China's version of Brawl Stars is drastically different from the normal version, so while it still gets regular updates, I'm not going to include them in the rest of this video because they greatly diverge from here. Now another major event in 2020 was the introduction of some cosmetic items. For a long time, pins were pretty exclusive, requiring an insane amount of luck and cash to get the ones that you wanted. They came in pin packs that were only available at the very end of the Brawl Pass, and of course for gems as well. However, I'd be willing to bet that many of you Brawl Stars veterans out there think of one big thing when you think of 2020, and that's Brawl Stars lore. And if we're going to talk about lore, we got to start with the WKBRL live stream, which was a YouTube video 24/7 live. It was a radio that would transmit bits and pieces of lore at random intervals. People had a ton of fun trying to make sense of all the little clues that Supercell would give us. Supercell, we want more lore. Now, not long after this live stream started, we got another huge piece of lore, and that would be the 8-bit minigame. On August 20th of 2020, you could click 8-bit 3 times in game, which would launch a browser and allow you to play 3 different minigames within the mind of 8-bit. This was a super neat Easter egg that gave some insight into 8-bit as a character. I'll say it again, I really wish they would do more stuff like this. But now it's time for the big one. Less than a month later, on September 7th, during the Brawl Talk, Brawl Stars dropped an investor video. If you don't know what that is, I highly recommend watching it right after this video. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So a summer full of lore came to a huge climax with this video, confirming some theories, disproving others, and sparking a ton of new ones. On top of that, we also got mystery gifts delivered to a lot of different Brawl Stars YouTubers, which also connected the lore of Brawl Stars and Star Park, which Star Park was now confirmed to be an amusement park, which Gamba over on Twitter was the first one to theorize this possibility. We also got the Star Park website where you could view items that were in the investor video and expanded further on the lore, and as you can see, there's some really creepy vibes in here. If you want to learn more about the lore of Brawl Stars, and I highly recommend you do, There are a lot of videos on YouTube back from 2020 that kind of break down all of this stuff and get out a lot of crazy theories.
Every one of these battles helps them train their hypnotized brawlers' minds into becoming super soldiers for interdimensional galactic domination.
But lore wasn't the end of 2020, because along with it also got the release of a map maker in October, which, crazy enough, actually awarded trophies if you won, which people abused, and Supercell quickly reverted that where you couldn't get trophies anymore. Then just a few months later in December, we got some free Christmas items, which had been kind of a reoccurring thing that Supercell would do for the community, except this was the first year that they made the hilariously annoying decision to give Edgar to everyone for free. Yeah, needless to say, it broke the game.
They are moving hearts. They do moving hearts.
So at the end of 2020, we got 11 new brawlers, a ton of new features, and more lore than this video even remotely does justice to. So with that said, let's move to 2021. Now 2021, just like the previous year, was a huge success, as well as a tragedy at many different points. Early in March 2021, we got a complete rework to the ranked game mode, which was renamed from Power Play to Power League. And this rework changed it pretty much from the ground up. Power League had no play limits like previously, and it also introduced rankings that more accurately reflected skill level. This also introduced us to exclusive skins, with the first one being Smuggler Penny. To get this, you had to win 25 times just for the privilege of being able to buy this exclusive skin. While that update was great, improving rank play drastically, there were some, let's just say, less desirable updates. And for that, I'm going to skip all the way to November 17th, 2021. Why this day? Well, this was the fateful day of reckoning when, after a relatively quiet year, they introduced 3 major updates to the game. And if I'm being completely honest, they were all absolutely despised by the community. And the one that wasn't despised, it definitely wasn't great. So let's start out with the least hated of the group, and that was Club League. Now, Club League in itself wasn't a bad thing. It opened the doors to a ton of progression and a reason to join clubs, as well as some compensation for another feature that I'm going to talk about shortly. So why was it not loved? Mainly because it was super grindy and it just felt like a chore. You had 15 tickets that you had to play every single weekend, and it got very old very quick. It made the game feel like a job rather than an actual game. This update also reduced club size from 100 all the way down to 30, which wasn't too big of a deal in the long run, but some of the clubs with a lot of members got pretty upset. For the good side of Club League, we got the club shop, which allowed you to spend club tokens to unlock exclusive skins, as well as a ton of progression towards your account. And this actually was one of the best ways to get progression in the game for a long time. Speaking of progression, you know what else was added in this update? Yeah, power level 11. And this was a massive deal because that meant that the cost of maxing out an account got infinitely harder overnight. Now, this might not have been so hated if it was just 1 power level, but it was 2, and that was ridiculous. And the game lead, Frank, actually told me that he felt like that was a mistake to do that they shouldn't have done 2 levels, it should have just been 1.
I'm with your mom.
But the icing on the cake that was released with it was its almost equally as evil cousin, Gears. Now, if you're new to the game, you may think that gears are just a fun way to customize your brawler, and as they stand today, you would be right. But gears upon release? Yeah, not so much. They were incredibly expensive to buy, or should I say build, because you needed that scrap and a gear token to make them and then get more to upgrade them. And they made reaching a max account feel almost impossible. In fact, I made a video on this update where I spent $5,000 in one video thinking that I would max out my account, but I didn't. And you might have think that I made my money back from the video with it all. You'd be wrong. So, if you want to help a brother out, go watch a video. I'm just saying, wife wasn't too happy. And that's not on the page. Now, sure, you could buy scrap from the club shop, but it didn't really matter. Free-to-play progression was slowed down just drastically in this update, and the hope of ever having a max account was just about gone. And needless to say, the community did not like it and was in an uproar, and Supercell needed to do something, and fast. So with that being said, 2021 ended up being what was probably unanimously the roughest point in Brawl Stars history. I mean, sure, that year brought some good features such as Knockout, Power League, and these 7 new brawlers, but the negatives from the November update was just too much to ignore. So at the start of the next year, YouTubers like myself knew that Supercell had to do something and do it quickly. Now, unfortunately, the first few months of this year were annoyingly stagnant. Update after update, the community was pretty frustrated that nothing was happening with Gears, and at points, it felt like nothing was happening in the game at all. I mean, sure, we were getting some new brawlers and new game modes that came and went, but the game just kind of felt stagnant, like it needed a change. Kind of like the game feels right now, but as we're going to see, they brought it back. Just like I know that they will again soon. Now that feeling of frustration and impatience was felt all the way until October 12th, 2020, when we were given a Brawl Talk confirming the long-awaited rework of Gears. They got rid of scrap and gear tokens and let us buy whatever gears we wanted to with gold. They also released different tiers of gears, common, epic, and mythic, and even gave us a free one. They also let us buy star powers directly now instead of getting them from boxes or hoping that they would show up in the shop. Now it may have came later than the community wanted, but better late than never, and this change was exactly what the game needed. Now while that change people loved, a few months later on December 12th, they announced the complete removal of Brawl Boxes, and this was immediately met with a ton of controversy and varying opinions. But looking back on it now, I think it was for the better. I think. The Trophy Road was completely reworked as well, and all of the brawlers that were in boxes or on the Trophy Road were now moved to a new way of getting brawlers, the Star Road, which has remained almost exactly the same as it is today. All of the brawlers, except the chromatics, which we'll mention in a bit, were put on the Star Road, where you would use the brand new currency credits to unlock them. This completely removed the luck aspect of unlocking brawlers and would let you more effectively choose who you wanted on your progression journey. Chromatic brawlers were now to be unlocked either for free on the premium side of the Brawl Pass or by using chroma credits, which you would get from the free side of the Brawl Pass. Now this update also removed brawler specific power points, which was a huge quality of life improvement. If you didn't play back then, you don't know the pain of getting that one brawler's power points that you really needed. Also in this update, they included Fame, which is still debated about today. Fame was a new system that would take all of the credits gained after unlocking all of the brawlers and then to put them into your overall Fame pool. Now it was intended for longtime players to show off their completion of the game, but it still kind of feels like a waste. So there you have it, the good and the bad of 2022. And this year was a wild year for the game, but 8 new brawlers, the long-awaited gear rework, a complete progression overhaul, one last Omega box, and a bug that allowed 140 mega boxes for $2. Yeah, that really happened. And yes, I really got it on 2 accounts. And if you got it, awesome. But if you weren't, yeah, you weren't so happy. And you let Brawl Stars know about it. Going into 2023, the game almost felt completely fresh. So many overhauls and changes towards the end of the last year made this new year feel like a blank slate. And honestly, I think that Supercell did a pretty good job at taking advantage of all of this. For starters, masteries were added, and they were pretty much unanimously loved by the community. We were also introduced to Bling, which gave free-to-play players the opportunity to get some skins for their favorite brawlers for free. Later on in June of that year, Supercell heard the cry of players who wanted the excitement that came with Brawl Boxes, so they gave us Star Drops, which were 100% free to get and gave you the exciting feeling of luck-based drops once again. Just a couple months later in August, we got the Mega Pig, which replaced Club League. This was a pretty great change. Now instead of being every weekend, it was a once monthly event that got rid of the constant grind of Club League. Not that the event itself was real great, but it was better than the grind of Club League. Except the progression. That was way worse. Now later in September, we got the release of the first Hyperchargers, which were actually not received that well at first. Some people even thought that they would kill the game. Needless to say, as time went on, they ended up being a pretty awesome addition that adds more depth to each brawler, even if they are kind of overpowered. Now in November, we got some more lore additions with the security camera stream, where we got to see Poco transformed by Leon with the power of gems. Finally, at the end of the year, chromatic brawlers were completely removed and given normal rarities, which made progressing a lot easier and less complex. Now going into 2024, the game was actually in a pretty good place and things were really looking up. Player count was on the rise and the game really started to feel fresh and fulfilling once again. And starting out in February, we got yet another change to ranked mode. This time it got changed from Power League to, well, Ranked. And Ranked once again was a big improvement as it allowed a pick and ban phase just like in esports, and it made competitive play for the average person way more fun and rewarding. Ranked Star Drops also came with this update, and with them brought the possibility of unlocking that season's Ranked skin for free. Now just a month later, Supercell gave us 100 Star Drops for absolutely free after completing a massive challenge to collect 1.5 billion rare Star Drops, which was the only time in the history of Star Drops that people actually wanted rares. In April, we got a really goofy update where Supercell did a collab with Baby Shark, and they gave us the Baby Shark El Primo skin. Yuck. Then we got an absolutely massive update that brought some insane hype to Brawl Stars with a huge collab with Godzilla, and they brought us this Godzilla event. The event brought us special drops called Monster Eggs, which gave specific mutations to brawlers and pretty much amped them up beyond busted state. It was chaos, but it was fun chaos. This update also gave us the first hypercharged skin, Godzilla Buzz, and 2 color variants to go along with it, which were a pretty cool feature, although really hard to get. This was Brawl Stars' first major collab, and it set new and very high expectations and standards for future events. Now fast forward to July, we got the classic Brawl event, and while it wasn't a collab like the Godzilla event, it was still a pretty big deal and featured all of the classic game modes, brawlers, and old mechanics, as well as the old balancing. We even got to open up some more mega boxes during the event, which kind of felt like seeing an old friend that you haven't seen in a while. Even if it was like a Temu version of the original Brawl boxes, it was still fun. Moving along to September, we got yet another huge collab, and this time it was a classic, and that was SpongeBob. Now the SpongeBob event was a little different than previous Godzilla event because in this event you unlocked powers for each class of brawlers, meaning that each power was usable on any brawler in that class. It was a fun time with like Colt and Rico in their aimbot power and insta-kill Crow. This event, just like the Godzilla event, came with a ton of exclusive skins, limited time powers, and temporary game modes. Now during this event you could unlock the SpongeBob El Primo skin for free by cooperating with your club, and if you missed it, I highly recommend you buy them the next time they come out because someday that licensing will run out and you won't be able to buy them anymore, so yeah, pick them up if you can. This year was full of massive events because right after that came the Angels vs. Demons event, which ran from early November to December. This event was released with a ton of exclusive skins with 2 sets of hypercharged skins, one for Mortis and one for Edgar, and they are, in my opinion, some of the best looking skins in the game, especially the Edgar one. During the Angels vs. Demons event, you could unlock angelic or demonic star drops that had a small chance of giving you this exclusive skin, but beyond that, they also allowed you to unlock specific angelic or demonic abilities that, to no surprise, were busted at first. Any of you remember the burn power on Miko or the invincible spike? Yeah, it was pretty wild. Now you may think that 2024 ends there, but no, in late December was the release of the Toy Story event that ran all the way to February of 2025. Now just like the other events, it came with exclusive skins and game modes, but unlike the other events, it came with a temporary brawler, Buzz Lightyear. Now don't get me wrong, Buzz Lightyear was pretty much unanimously hated by the community for being completely busted and annoying, but considering that he was kind of like 3 brawlers in one, he was kind of cool for a time. I actually thought he was a really fun idea. It's just, he outstayed his welcome by a lot. But overall, 2024 was an amazing year for the game. I'd argue one of, if not the biggest surge to the game's popularity that we have ever seen. I mean, sure, we may not have gotten a ton of permanent content, but those events were super fun to play and attracted a ton of new players and even helped bring back old players. 2024 not only brought us 12 new brawlers, but a massive rework to the trophy system that made pushing trophies to 1,000 much more obtainable, and trophies past that went towards your trophy box, which has bling and pins and all the way up to a hypercharged skin. So then finally we get to this year, and even though the things I'm going to mention here just happened, it's still history, and I think that if we look back in another 5 years from now, some of the changes that just happened are going to seem pretty small in retrospect. Starting out the year, once we got past the Toy Story event, we got Ranked 2.0, which was yet another rework to Ranked. In this rework, they renamed the highest tier Pro, but more importantly, it introduced to us the Pro Pass, which there is a free and a paid side, and rewards a ton of cosmetics and even gems on the paid side. Now, the update in February introduced us to a huge gadget rework. Up until this point, gadgets had been nearly unchanged in their function. This update, however, changed that entirely and allowed each gadget to be used an unlimited amount of times in a game, using a cooldown instead of a set limit. Now, this was a pretty controversial change that I think that when we look back in a few years, we'll all agree that was for the better. The rank change also brought us a new hypercharged skin for Colt that is obtainable and upgradable through the Pro Pass. As of now, each Pro Pass season lasts 3 months, which gives you more than enough time to complete them to get all of the rewards. Later on in April, we got a mini collab with Uno that gave us a challenge and it included some limited time game modes and even gave you the Uno Chester skin. Now in May, May, we got the start of the Sushi Smash event, which gave us yet another amazing hypercharged skin, Oni Kenji. Now this event, just like many of the others, featured limited time power-ups and exclusive skins and drops, except for this time you had little sushis that you could slash and cut them in half, doubling the amount of sushi and doubling your rewards. This also introduced a new rarity of brawler, the ultra legendary brawler that is named Kaze. And yeah, the mechanics of this brawler definitely warrant the rarity, although not very many people like the price tag.
Greedy self?
And then we come to the update that just happened. Saw another massive controversial one. That is the removal of our loved mastery tracks. Now they've also completely redesigned the trophy road to incorporate some of the lore in the game into it. We don't have the full thing yet, but there will be more that will be revealed in the updates to come. So that will be interesting to see where that goes when we look back. And then finally, we have the introduction of the record system, which currently is also not so well liked. And even Brawl Stars themselves have come out and said that they didn't handle this last update the best, but are working hard to make right the changes for the coming updates. Now, as for the state of the game, currently the game has gone pretty downhill in popularity. Okay, actually big time downhill, but it's coming off its biggest year ever in 2024, so that's to be expected somewhat. But I think that we're at a pretty pivotal point in the trajectory of the game, but I am confident and hopeful in what Brawl Stars will be cooking up in the months and years to come. So there you have it, the complete history of Brawl Stars. Looking back over the years really puts into perspective how much this game has actually changed. Some of the changes were amazing and some others, not so great. But if there's anything that I've learned over the past almost 9 years of playing this game, it's that we have an amazing community and some really great devs that always pull through for us, even if it does take a while sometimes.
I'm with your mum.
So when you come back to this video in 1 or 2 or even 5 years from now, be sure to leave a comment on what huge changes have happened since I recorded this video, and feel free to take a walk down memory lane.